Welcome back to Pride. I wanted to put this out there. A lot of people have been asking me what I think about this upcoming fight. Roy Jones Jr. versus Mike Tyson, November 28th. It's going to be an 8-round exhibition. And I think this is going to be a good fight, man. I'm excited for this fight. Even Bob is excited for this fight. That's how good of a fight this could be. Roy Jones Jr., pound for pound, king of the 90s. And Mike Tyson, man. Anytime anyone asks me who I think the best fighter of all time was, it's never really one answer. It's usually, I talk about Rocky Marciano, I talk about Joe Louis, I talk about Frazier and Ali, and I always talk about Roy Jones Jr. and Mike Tyson, Always in those top 10, there's always Roy Jones Jr. and Mike Tyson. And so having two of the greatest fighters of all time going at it is going to be a real exciting fight. I wanted to go over some of the things to look for and to watch out for in this fight for Roy, for Mike, and see what you guys think, and maybe you guys will see some of these things in the fight. So first you want to look at both fighters. Roy was a light heavyweight. He was a natural light heavyweight. He was good size for his weight class. Tyson was a little bit small for a heavyweight, but he was thick, so he had the weight on him. So they're not meeting too far apart in size. Roy has a little bit of reach advantage, but when you look at two retired fighters that are late in their careers like Roy and Mike are, you want to look at one thing. What does a fighter lose first? His reaction timing. That's the first thing that starts to go in a fighter, and we saw that in Roy in his late fights. His reaction timing wasn't there anymore, and Roy was a fighter that really relied on that reaction timing. His timing and his skill, that was his reaction timing. So once that started to go, it really hurt Roy in the ring. What's the last thing to go in a fighter? His punch. The last thing to go in a fighter is his punch. Mike Tyson was all about his punch. He had a lot of other skills as well, but his punching power was always there. So if you look at the first thing to go and the last thing to go, Tyson always utilized that punching power, and that's the last thing to go in a fighter. So he still got it. He still got that punching power. Roy Jones Jr. always utilized that reaction time, that cat-like reflex. That was the first thing to go for him. So if you look at their strengths and weaknesses, Mike Tyson's strength is still there. It hasn't gone. Roy Jones Jr.'s strength was the first thing to go. It's been gone for years. He can work on his reaction timing. Roy Jones Jr. was one of my favorite fighters of all time, just to put it out there real quick. I'm not trying to say nothing bad about Roy, but it's just boxing. The first thing to go in a fighter is his reaction timing, his timing. That's what goes. His reflexes. The last thing to go in a fighter is his punching power. And if you look at these two fighters, Roy really relied on that reaction timing. He fought with that left hand down, swinging, and he relied on that reaction timing, and he did it beautifully. But once that started to go, it made it real difficult for him in the ring. Whereas punching power, Mike Tyson, that's the last thing to go, so he still had it all these years. He still has it till today. So being that this is an 8-round exhibition, Roy's really going to want to keep his distance and use that reach advantage. He has the reach advantage, so he really wants to use it. He really wants to sharpen up that jab and stick and move and use his footwork. This is something you want to watch out for during the fight. If Roy sticks and moves and uses footwork and uses that long jab and then works on his inside fight game, he could be successful in this fight. So you want to see Roy stick and move. You want to see that movement. You want to see the footwork. Tyson is ferocious. He'll come forward. He's got good footwork as well. He's got real good footwork moving forward. But being that Roy has a little bit of reach advantage and a little bit of height, a real wide stance, he's always had that wide stance, he can really move around and cover some good ground and discourage Tyson. And that's what you need to do. You need to frustrate Tyson. Anyone who saw some of Tyson's losses, it was when he got really discouraged. Holyfield really discouraged him, made him feel like he couldn't do nothing to him, made him feel like he couldn't damage him. So by using that reach advantage and sticking that jab and sticking that 1-2 when Mike tries to step forward is really what's going to hold him at bay and discourage him a little bit. Tyson has real good head movement when moving forward, so just a single jab might not do it. Roy needs to really work on those straight shots, work on doubling up the jab, and throwing those 1-2-3 straight shots, 1-2-3. This way, if he slips one, he slips two, catch him with that third one and be ready to move. He's got to be real elusive on his feet and ready to move. Another thing Roy should be working on is his close range fighting. When he's inside the pocket, real close, real tight. When Tyson gets in close, he throws, he moves, he changes levels. He's a master at that close range fighting. So Roy really wants to work on covering up, being able to roll with those hooks that Tyson throws at him. And he's got to really come back with some short hooks and uppercuts to be able to keep Tyson at bay, to really be able to trade with him. He can't simply cover up and take those shots and try to roll with those shots and cover those shots. He really needs to exchange with him, but do it smartly, cover up, change levels, move the head. He needs to really work on that, because 8 rounds is a long time to try to just keep Tyson at bay. There's going to be moments where he gets in, he gets inside, and that's where he's going to go for the kill. So Roy really needs to work on his close range shots, being able to cover up and throw real short shots and move the head and stay covered up, because those shots from Tyson are heavyweight shots. So Tyson knows Roy is going to try to keep his distance. I'm sure he knows he's going to try to use the jab and use the straight shots and dance around. He knows what he's got to do. He knows he's got to get in close. One thing he needs to work on, though, is working on the body when he gets in close, which Tyson always did well. He always understood to go to the body, because any chance he gets in close, he wants to do some permanent damage for the rest of the fight. By landing shots to the body, Tyson loves the bob and weave. If he bobs to one side and digs into that body, he can try to come up to the head as well. But as long as he lands to that body, he's going to be draining Roy. This way, in those later rounds, he's not evading as well. He's not moving around and being as elusive. Those body shots really take their toll on you, and coming from Tyson, they'll definitely take their toll on Roy. So just to recap, if you're rooting for Roy to win this fight and you're hoping he comes out victorious, things you want to see him doing, you want to see him keeping range and sticking that jab, throwing the 1-2, throwing that 1-2-3 as Tyson tries to come in at him. You want to see him real elusive, moving real well, and sticking that jab and keeping that distance. When Tyson does break his defense and get inside, you want to see Roy throwing some real short shots, fighting real smart, covering up real smart, but firing back, because Tyson is ferocious. The second he gets inside, he's going to be throwing some mean hooks, mean uppercuts, and Roy needs to be answering back and using speed. If Roy has the speed advantage, he could land 2 shots before Tyson lands 1. If you're rooting for Tyson to win this fight, you want to see him landing those shots to the body, especially in those early rounds, slowing Roy down. This way he gets more chances on the inside. The more times Tyson gets in close here, the more chances he has of winning. The more times he lands to the body, the less Roy's going to be able to move away and evade those attacks, giving him more opportunities to get in close and land some big shots and finish the fight. And as for myself, I'm just rooting for both of these guys to come out okay. I hope they put on a good show, give us a good fight, and give themselves what they needed as fighters. You know, the accomplishment of coming out of retirement and doing this fight at their age. I hope they give themselves what they wanted, and I hope they come out okay. These are 2 of the greatest fighters of all time. I've been in the ring myself. I can't really root for either one of these guys. I just hope they both come out okay. Thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. Be sure to tune in for that fight, November 28th.